Hey y'all, 5 Minute Delay here. I hope you guys are having a wonderful new year so far. In today's video, I want to talk about what might be coming to Halloween Horror Nights in 2023. Yep, the year just barely started and my mind is already in Halloween. For the first part of this video, I'm going to list all the movies, shows, bands, artists, or any original ideas that I personally would like to see at Horror Nights, but probably wouldn't be at the event anytime soon. For the second part of this video, I'll list some of the IPs that I believe have a really good chance of coming to Horror Nights this year, for better or worse. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So for this section of the video, I want to talk about some of the IPs or ideas that I personally would like to see at Horror Nights, but in all honesty, they have like a 0 to 50% chance, I want to say, of being at Horror Nights, at least this year. First and foremost, we definitely need more original houses at Hollywood this year. Preferably an original house that doesn't have a celebrity's name slapped onto the title. Like say for example El Cucuy, when they were marketing it, it said like, oh, it will feature narration by Danny Trejo. And it's like, okay, that's cool and all, but when did I ask about the narration of the maze? Like, I don't care about the narration, let alone Danny Trejo's voice in the maze. Another example, Clowns 3D wasn't just Clowns 3D. It had to be Clowns 3D, maze music by Slash. Like, okay, yeah, it's cool and all, but like, why did you feel the need to like name drop Slash? Like, you already sold us at Clowns. Honestly, I want more houses like Pandora's Box. It didn't have any celebrity's name attached to it. It was just its own original thing. And that's what I really liked about it. And like, that maze was actually very scary too. And that's the originality that I expect from Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood. In terms of horror movies that I would like to see at Horror Nights, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is definitely Scream. It makes sense because there's a new Scream movie coming out in March, and Scream itself is one of the biggest horror franchises of all time. So it's a given that like it should be at Horror Nights. Like, its arrival at Horror Nights is long overdue. But the one thing that's preventing Scream from being at Horror Nights for a very long time now is all the rights issues. For those of you that don't know, the Scream series is owned by Miramax, which for those of you that don't know, is partially owned by Disney. Yeah, that alone should tell you that Scream probably won't be at Horror Nights like in the near future. Another series of movies that I would like to see are the Evil Dead movies, preferably Sam Raimi's original trilogy. We've gotten the remake, we've gotten Ash vs. Evil Dead, but we still have yet to see those first 3 movies translated into a haunted attraction. Now would be the perfect time to do so. Not only would it be a good way to promote Evil Dead Rise coming out this year, but it would also be a good way to promote the Evil Dead game, which features characters from that original trilogy. So yeah, we need to see the Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, and Dead by Dawn and Horror Nights like yesterday. There's also quite a handful of movies from Warner Brothers that still have yet to come out at Horror Nights. I think it was because Warner Brothers had their own Halloween event going on, but they don't have that event anymore, so they literally have no other excuse to gatekeep the rights to their horror movies. That way Universal can just borrow them for Horror Nights. The Conjuring, the It movies, Beetlejuice. We were so close to getting Beetlejuice 2 in 2020. How come it never showed up in 2021 or 2022? I guess we'll never know. But hopefully in 2023 or a couple years after that, we'll finally see the Ghost with the Most at Horror Nights. Just a couple more titles to throw out there just for the sake of it. Megan, the new doll horror movie from Universal. It'd be really funny to see Megan at Horror Nights, but I highly doubt it'll happen. And Hellraiser, I know a new movie just came out last year. It was somewhat successful, but if I were to see Hellraiser at the event, it would probably be the original. And also, since we're doing music mazes again, I figured John Brennan might take a crack at Iron Maiden or Metallica. One movie that I would really love to see at Horror Nights is The Thing, John Carpenter's movie. Every once in a while, John Murdy and his crew will make a maze based on a 1980s movie with very cool practical effects. American Werewolf in London, Poltergeist, Ghostbusters. I feel like the only other movie I can think of that fits that criteria is The Thing. They did the prequel movie back in 2011, I want to say, but unfortunately I wasn't able to experience that one. But seeing John Carpenter's movie being brought to life in front of my eyes would be one hell of an experience. One last idea I want to throw out there. I highly doubt this will happen, hence why I put this in my wishful thinking section, but just hear me out. This new series of movies has taken the horror genre by storm. Someone argued that these movies are a little too niche for Universal Studios, but I think it would be a wasted opportunity not to include it this year. Terrifier. Me personally, I highly doubt they would make a house based on the 2 movies, because if you go back and watch the movies, they're like super violent and gory and just brutal. Yes, we're talking about Halloween Horror Nights here, But lately, I've been noticing that a lot of the houses are getting a lot more tame and a lot more clean, which in my honest opinion kind of sucks. But yeah, with the way Universal's acting right now, there is no way they're gonna feature any of the scenes in Terrifier into a haunted house. Which is why I have made this proposition. Terror Tram, featuring Art the Clown. Now I understand we already had a clown character roaming around the backlot last year with Hollywood Harry. In fact, that was one of my main complaints about the Terror Tram last year, is that Hollywood Harry just being a nuisance, just constantly being at Terror Tram, and just reminded me that like, they're really out of ideas. But I just really want Art the Clown to show up in Horror Nights in some shape or form, and I highly doubt they're gonna make a haunted house like I said. So why not just show him at the Terror Tram? And I was actually watching some videos from last year's Terror Tram. Some of the kill scenes that they featured in that tram is actually pretty like violent and bloody, and like, not my honest opinion, it's like the closest that we'll ever get to any of the violence in Terrifier. Yeah, just have Art killing a bunch of people, have a lot of victims running around, have a lot of like some like clown minions on the side running around as well, helping Art. I would also suggest a Terrifier scare zone in order to prevent a redundant Terror Tram, but let's be honest, scare zones lately have been pretty mid. But yeah, John Murdy, if you're watching this right now, please include Art the Clown in the event. Thank you. And yeah, that's about it in regards to like my wishful thinking section. Here is the ideal maze lineup that I would have if I were John Murdy for a year and rights weren't an issue like at all. This is the ideal lineup that I would have. And this lineup is just too good to be true. Well, that's because it is. Let me tell you what's actually coming to the event. We are now moving on into the realistic speculation section of the video. So these mazes that I'm going to list have like a good like 51 to 100% chance of coming to the event this year. I highly doubt the original Evil Dead trilogy is actually going to show up at Horror Nights this year. Yes, it makes sense considering they have Evil Dead Rise to promote, but in that case, you might as well just do Evil Dead Rise itself as the maze. I also think The Weeknd has a really good chance of coming back this year. I highly doubt they'll do After Hours Nightmare again, but instead they'll just have it based on Dawn FM. The Weeknd House last year was successful, and I don't really see a big reason why it shouldn't come back this year. This next one might be a bit of a stretch, but just hear me out. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. We were originally gonna get Season of the Witch in 2020 right before it got cancelled. And if you look back at the old construction updates in 2021, you can actually see a facade with the silver shamrock logo in it. So if Season of the Witch has been shelved for quite some time now, why would 2023 be the year that it might finally come to Horror Nights? Well, let me explain myself. In 2018, they did Halloween 4, which at first seemed like a strange movie to make a maze out of, but it really seemed like it was their way of promoting the new Halloween movie that came out that year. In 2021, they did Halloween 4 again, and at that same year, Halloween Kills came out. And in 2022, they did the original Halloween again, which was their way of promoting Halloween Ends. This year, however, does not have a Halloween movie coming out that Universal can promote. And it makes sense why they tried to do Season of the Witch in 2020, because again, there was no Michael Myers movie coming out that year. So yeah, there's a really good chance that Season of the Witch might come this year. And staying on the subject of returning mazes, I do believe we'll get at least 2 or 3 repeat mazes this year. Let's be honest guys, lately that's been the norm for Horror Nights. It's like, hey, remember that maze we did 4 or 5 years ago? Here it is again, with some slight modifications. Last year, those mazes were Halloween, La Llorona, and Killer Clowns. Those are 3 mazes alone, that's almost half of the lineup. So mark my words everyone, some maze from like 5 or 6 years ago is gonna make its return this year. I also believe there's a really good chance that they might pull a Scarecrow this year, and they might just take an original concept from Orlando and then John Murdy will just make his own version of that house. But as long as it's at the same level of quality as Scarecrow, then I'm honestly not complaining. As far as Terror Tram goes, I honestly have no idea what they can do with the Terror Tram this year. They could just do Hollywood Harry again, which would not be my ideal theme of a Terror Tram. But, I mean, they could do some kind of like Crib TV Terror Tram. I know Eli Roth is very close with John Murdy, so that's not impossible. But yeah, Terror Tram could be anything. And yeah, that just about does it for the legitimate speculation section of the video. Here's another map that I made that's filled with more logical entries that we can like realistically expect to see from this year. In other words, I think this lineup has a better chance of actually coming to fruition than the previous map that I showed you guys. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. If you like what you saw, go ahead and click the like button. And if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and feel free to click on the subscribe button. One of my main goals for this year was definitely to put out more content in this channel, so hopefully I get to deliver that this year. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video, and until then, see you all in the fog.